Hello, everybody. If you love fantasy football or best ball, you are in the right space. My name is Liam Murphy. I'm the only 3-time NFL best ball champion. Let's get it, fam. Thanks for being here, everybody. We have passed the 3,700 subscriber goal on the channel. We're on the way to 5K, so please do hit the subscribe button if you enjoy this content. I launched my best ball site yesterday. Actually, before we get into that, I want to talk about the NFL news that we got, which surprisingly, we did get quite a bit of news. First of all, DJ Chark signed a 1-year, up to $5 million deal with the Chargers. I think this makes sense from both sides. Sorry, Charles. We don't highlight third on this channel. We highlight William, the first on the channel. God day for $1.5 million draft. Fortunately, William, we're not doing a $1.5 million draft, but we'll get to that. So DJ Chark signs with the Chargers. DJ Chark obviously is a down the field player. The Chargers wide receiver room before this, the people we drafted was Ladd McConkey and then Josh Palmer, who I think are comfortably the 1 and 2. And then Quentin Johnston, we closed our eyes and did it in the 14th round. There's no real way to cut this, but DJ Chark signing with the Chargers is bad news for Quentin Johnston, mainly, in my opinion. Maybe Quentin develops. Maybe he still sees the field. But if DJ Chark's on the field, it probably means Quentin Johnston is not. I definitely think DJ Chark is worth a stab in Justin Herbert's stacks, right? Could he not even make the team? Absolutely. You should be prepared for that, right? He doesn't separate. He's a down-the-field guy. He might just be running a lot of air yard routes where he doesn't get targeted. He's just dragging the safeties. But the spike week ability will be there when you're in an offense attached to Justin Herbert and you're competing with one of the worst first-year, rookie wide receiver years we've ever seen from a guy who had so much opportunity in Quentin Johnston but did nothing with it. And yeah, he used to be a good wideout, right? John saying he balled with Jax. Yeah, that 1 year in Jacksonville, he broke his ankle, unfortunately. But he was going to be their number 1 wideout that year. The year before, I thought he was solid. Obviously, he's slowed off. The Panthers had such a bad O-line that that does not support what DJ Chark does, right? DJ Chark needs you to block well, get down the field, and occasionally he'll catch a deep bomb. The Chargers, in theory, have 2 potentially all-pro tackles, right? So maybe they can hold up, and Justin Herbert, we know, has the arm. Odell Beckham Jr. signs with the Dolphins. I was already pretty down on their wide receiver 3 that they drafted. I'm going to need to pull up this guy's name, so I'm forgetting it. But I was already that guy was not even close to a 100% draft rate player for me. Let me pull this up. I'm forgetting his name. He exciting profile, I guess, but he's a very late round wideout. His name is, I'm really having to scroll here. Taj Washington, but I think they got one before that too. They took 2 Washingtons. They took Malik Washington in round 6, who I think people were drafting some, and then Taj Washington. This is awful news for those 2 players. I would not be drafting those guys until we see training camp. I don't think you have to draft Odell. I do think Odell is a fine 18th round pick with Tua stacks. Potentially, it's not great news for like Jonnu Smith, who Jonnu Smith is a whatever as a tight end, but we know he has yard after catch ability. And in an offense with a bunch of other fast players, the opportunity's there, right? If he's now the 4 or worse when you include the running backs, that's not good. Odell did get a little bit more money. I think it's like $8.5 million. Not exact on those contract details, but I think you can do worse than take a stab on Odell. I actually thought Odell was fine with the Ravens. And then Chase Claypool signed with the Bills. I would only be drafting Chase Claypool in Josh Allen stacks, and I would be doing it a very small percent of the time. The reason is, I think this is a great signing for Buffalo, and it's a great signing for Chase Claypool in the sense that Claypool's 26. The Dolphins chose the 32-year-old Odell Beckham Jr. over him. Chase Claypool is like DJ Chark, right? Where he's trying to win down the field and be that type of guy. He's played with some awful quarterbacks after Ben Roethlisberger. He had that great rookie year. He's been disappointing since. He has maturity issues, is the rumor. Him betting on himself. And really, this could be his last time. This could be his last shot, right? And he might not make the team, right? That's why I think it's totally fine with Claypool. Like, if you want to take an occasional Claypool with Josh Allen, be my guest. But Chase Claypool is likely competing right now for like the 7th wide receiver in Buffalo. If it works out, that's great news. And I think he's the type of signing where you can kind of wait till training camp, see what the early news is. If it's like, holy shit, Chase Claypool is like a dominant guy. He's getting a lot of run. Boom, draft him. He's probably not going to get that much more expensive. He's just not a guy who's like worth risking a 0 on to me, where unlike like a murky RB2 is almost always worth risking a 0, like drafting Zach Evans or Kyron Williams. That's worth it, right? The times you get Zach Evans, whatever. The times you get Kyron, ka-ching, right? So Claypool, we'll leave the light on. He could be behind Justin Shorter. He could be behind Shavers. He could be behind Mac Hollins, but he's trying to kind of play that X role, which, everyone, a lot of talk has been about Keon Coleman. He's not an X. He needs to be big slot. Well, if Claypool's seeing the field, maybe Coleman will get in there. That's it for like relevant NFL news, I think. We got Gabe Davis in the chat. Shout out Gabe Davis. He says, Claypool over me? Come on, man. Love the community here. So yeah, I launched my best ball site yesterday. I got another article up there. We'll be working hard on the site, getting articles. This article is free if you subscribe to the site, meaning you don't have to pay to watch this one. The parts 2 and part 3 will be for paid only. I don't think I said the price of my site. It's $99 for the whole year, which if you buy it now will cover you for all of best ball season. You'll get rankings on Drafters, DraftKings, FFPC, and Underdog. It will cover you for playoff best ball. It will cover you for pre-draft best ball next year. So the big board drafts and Underdog and whatnot, the playoff contests once they drop. So pretty good deal. And also will cover you for any in-season NFL content I do for DFS or whatnot, waiver wires, etc. So I'm going to read the first part of this article to you guys before I get into a draft today. And it's titled, How the Best Ball Market Has Changed, Rounds 1 through 6, Part 1. The best ball market can go through some significant changes year to year. This is on beatbestball.com, by the way. Some people have asked my site name. I'll be telling you more about it. But this is why I've always thought peer historical research and application can massively miss the point if you don't take into account where the players are going from year to year. Nothing illustrates this more clearly than the change in ADPs, meaning average draft position, from Best Ball Mania 1 to now. In BBM 1, there was one wide receiver that regularly went in the first rounds of drafts. One. The rest were running backs and Lamar/Mahomes. In contrast, Best Ball Mania 4 had only 3 running backs regularly go in the first round. How times have changed. So what this means is all the time I see research that's like drafters who started 7 wideouts and 5 running backs and then 2 tight ends and 2 quarterbacks smash. So you should just do the same thing this year. And if you don't think about how the market has changed year to year, that's nonsense, right? Or like another thing is like just draft, the rookies in rounds 8, where maybe like Jaden Reed, you could get in like the 14th round. If the Jaden Reed profile is now an 8th round guy in drafts, that changes everything for us. Let's now take a look at a draft board from one of my last drafts in Best Ball Mania 4 to one of my latest drafts in Best Ball Mania 5. It's likely that we'll see several players go through significant ADP changes, but we aren't likely to see enough change that the sentiments we conclude here won't hold. I may revisit this article later in the summer if we do. And then I have a draft board for Best Ball Mania 4, my last one in September, to a Best Ball Mania 5 draft that I did literally last night. I was the Amon-Ra Jonathan Taylor start, which was the combination that won me Best Ball Mania 2. So, and I'll let you guys go to the site and look at it. The link is here if you want to go look at this on your own. The big board is Underdog's pre-NFL draft flagship contest with 20 rounds and $200K to first. Best Ball Mania 5 is Underdog's post-NFL draft flagship contest with 18 rounds and $1.5 million to first. The addition of 2 rounds does change things a tad bit for where late round players can go, but let's start with some top-down differences we're seeing and how we can exploit this with our builds will be in part 3. So we're not concluding today. We're just kind of observing what the market, how it's changed in part 1. In the first round, Best Ball Mania 4 had 7 wide receivers go. Best Ball Mania 5 had 9, and that's a 28.5% increase. In the first 2 rounds, Best Ball Mania 4 had 13 wideouts go, and Best Ball Mania 5 had 16. That's a 23% increase. In the first 3 rounds, Best Ball Mania 4 had 19, and Best Ball Mania 5 had 25. That's a 31.5% increase. In the first 4 rounds, Best Ball Mania 4 had 25. Best Ball Mania 5 had 28. That's a 12% increase. In the first 5 rounds, BBM 4 30, Best Ball Mania 5 34. That's a 13% increase. In the first 6 rounds, Best Ball Mania 4 37 and BBM 5 41. That's an 11% increase. I think the first 6 rounds is a great place to look at, as it's typically where we're expecting to find elite to near elite production from our fantasy pick. It also will allow us to break the market up into 3 even sections: the 1st to 6th round, the 7th through 12th, and the 13th through 18th. The 2 draft boards I've selected are unlikely to be a perfect capture of the different markets, but as someone who volume drafts, it's doing a pretty good job. What we're seeing is wide receivers are more expensive than ever, particularly in rounds 1 through 3. 2 to 3 wide receivers around may not sound like much, but as you can see, it's a 23 to 31.5% increase from rounds 1 through 3, with a peak of 31.5% increase in round 3. The new wide receivers makeup for 2024 includes, in the rookie category, one first-round rookie, Marvin Harrison Jr., a second-round rookie, Malik Neighbors, and 2 sixth-round rookies, Odunze and Brian Thomas Jr. For second-year players, you got Puka Nacua in the first. You got 2 fourth-round players in Tank Dell and Say Flowers. You got 5th-round player Rashee Rice, who either would be higher if he wasn't suspended or would be going much lower if he is suspended half the year, and a 6th-round player in Jaden Reed. That's a total of 9 players, or 22% of the wideouts drafted in rounds 1 through 6 being a rookie or second-year player. This compares with BBM 4, which had for the rookie category 6th-round rookies, 2 to 3. Jordan Addison was technically a 7th-round pick at the 701, but I'm going to include him. Zay Flowers, JSN, Jordan Addison. And then in the second-year player category, you had 2 second-round picks in Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, 2 4th-round picks in Drake London and Christian Watson, and 2 6th-round picks in Jahan Dotson and George Pickens. This is technically 8 players with Addison a 7th-round turn pick, but the real story is the cost of these groups of players. The second-year players have a similar cost to their BBM4 counterparts, but the rookies are far more expensive than ever before. Perhaps this is the market, quote unquote, sharpening itself, as zero running back has been a proven strategy, but it is eyebrow raising. That's not to say it isn't logical, however. Marvin Harrison Jr., Neighbors, and Odunze drew far more draft capital than last year's rookies and landed in great to decent landing spots. Odunze actually is cheaper than his big board price, but I don't agree with that. And then I go on to talk about the running backs, the quarterbacks, and the tight ends for the first 3 rounds, the first 6 rounds. You're welcome to go to my site and read that on your own time. Okay. Hope you guys like that article. Let's see if there's any comments here. Any structural takes so far? Can't stop drafting zero running back. Yeah, I think that's generally fine. Part of the reason why I'm doing the market article to begin my site is I want to dive into the market, and then I want to give my structural takes in part 3 / maybe a part 4, just like conclusion piece as like how you can exploit this market. Drafters. Let's talk about drafters. Drafters, first off, you can use promo code Cheslium if you're not up and running on Drafters. Drafters is a season-long, meaning weeks 1 through 17, total points contest, meaning there are no playoff pods. It's just who scores the most points weeks 1 through 17. I'll have separate articles researching drafters, but as far as the changes this year, they've dropped their price point to $15 a draft, and the prize pool is as follows: $500K to first. That's the most it's ever been. $200K to second. Third is $100K. 20th place is getting $10K. 50th place, $3,500. So I think the payouts are a little bit steeper with them having such a high first place prize compared to the years past, but still pretty decent, It would just be a bit of a gut punch still to get fifth being 10% of first. That's not my favorite payout structure, but I understand why a site like Drafters would do this. Drafters, to be honest with you, is a site that has overlaid the past several years. What is overlay? Overlay means the contest does not fill. So in a playoff format, if overlay occurs, what that means is you are competing with less teams, and they'll start taking teams that finished in third, in fourth, or whatever. They'll start taking the highest scoring teams that did not make the playoffs and putting those teams into the playoffs to fill their playoff structure. For a site like Drafters, if it overlays, it just means you're competing with less people to try to win prizes, right? So it makes a contest entry just more plus EV. And I can't quite remember the total overlay numbers on it, but I do think mixing it up with Drafters is fun. It's a different type of challenge, so I'll have unique rankings for Drafters. And it's something that, I think you can comfortably draft early because, yes, you could draft an injured player, you could whatever, but you don't care about the NFL schedule as much. You're just trying to build the highest scoring team. So trying to take advantage of potential bad ADPs really is a benefit in something like Drafters. We are at the 107 here. We got some friends and family in here. Let's get this draft. This is my 13th. I did, I think, 12 on launch day. I'll put my promo code in here if anyone needs. They also have a promo where you draft a certain amount of people, or you draft a certain amount of teams, and I think you'll get, I can't quite remember what it is, but it's a promo code if you need to get up and running. I think it's $100 deposit match. I don't remember, to be honest. Let's see what Drafters has got. Well, they did a ticket giveaway, and milestone bonuses. Draft 10, get 1 bonus ticket. 25, another one, I think. 52, 103. If you max, you get $100 this. They usually have a lower buy-in one too, and I wasn't sure if they had a May promo code. Maybe that was just DraftKings I'm confusing it with, but yeah, so different challenge here. I don't have my rankings plugged in yet, but I will. My rankings for the other sites online next week is the plan. Thanks everyone for being here, by the way. Getting a lot of positive comments on the streams. Couple haters here and there, but we'll try to win them over as well. You could tell how many streams someone has done by the number next to their name. Another thing I like about drafters is if you draft Clyde Edwards-Helaire, this is the only player I've seen this with. No matter how big you make your browser, like I can make this wide, his name shows up as a scroll bar. Jesus, that's scary. I don't want to take him at the 107. Yeah, I think Jefferson is a slam dunk pick there. Got the number 2. Welcome, Quasi. Definitely let me know what type of streams you guys like. I think Underdog is the most popular, and so I definitely try to show many of my Best Ball Mania 5s. I got a lot of people saying they liked the DraftKings content because not a lot of people do DraftKings. I've won DraftKings tournaments as well, so of course want to show some love there. And then yeah, Drafters is the least popular. It's just the smallest site, but I mean, if you're trying to turn a profit, overlay is what you should be chasing. So now, is it a guaranteed overlays? Absolutely not. Very blessed indeed says, Liam, best thing about you, I've always enjoyed the fact that you give some game theory advice instead of BS player takes all the time. Yeah, I mean, obviously player takes is a huge part of fantasy football, right? Like being right on players is generally what's going to drive you, but I don't think that's something anyone can like reliably do year to year. So I think employing game theory is generally what's going to allow you to be a winning best ball player year to year. And that's why I try to like a lot of my articles on my site will be focused on game theory. Of course, I'm going to have articles on like my favorite players per round, etc. I generally have like really sharp I always try to have sharp end of draft picks, such as like a Kyron Williams or like the Zamir Whites. I was drafting Zamir White the day the contest launched last year, and he didn't really get steam until like later in the summer. But yeah, I think anyone who's just being like, this player's good, this player's bad, you should be careful about blindly following their advice. Especially if there's no like in any of that, you know? All right. So we're gonna go wide out here. Yeah, I mean, I love Ayuk, but the fact that Olave is competing with like a non-target dominant Shaheed, a Kamara, another year older, guys like that, I quite like. I love Kyron too. Like, again, the market is disparaging Kyron because they drafted Blake Corum, but that doesn't really change much for us as far as like his upside seasons. Yes, Carlos, we talked about this. Drafters is season points total, so week 17 correlation is irrelevant. I mean, depends what type of person you are. Like, I can't, if you want to be the guy who is in 5th place in drafters and you got all week 17 stacked up and you have this great week 17, maybe week 17 correlation does matter to you. But no, I would say definitely week 17 correlation is obviously almost irrelevant on drafters. However, something like division stacks, something like stacking up, opponents of your players, arguably would, right? So, like with me having Justin Jefferson, by the way, I'm expecting the NFL schedule to drop next week, which maybe will happen, maybe it won't. So, with me having Jefferson here, I could play. God, this is last year, man. All right, let's just do this. This is an easy way to do it. So I know that they are playing. Let's see, what divisions are they playing? They're playing the AFC South: Jags, Titans, Colts, and Texans. They are playing the NFC West: Cardinals, Seahawks, Niners, and Rams. So when you're breaking ties, arguably you could break a little bit of tie for that. Obviously, their division opponents they play twice. Oh no, you didn't realize it was season total points? Wow. I mean, Achan's ADP is obviously falling, but yeah, I don't see him falling much more than the third round. And I see a lot of people struggling with a guy like Achan who I think his season total projection is a little iffy, where it could be Mostert. I'm not expecting Jalen Wright to get a ton of run unless one of Achan or Mostert goes down. Obviously, Tyreek is an explosive guy. Waddle's an explosive guy. You got all these explosive guys, which does not bode well for gaining first down after first down if they're just airing it out and scoring a touchdown right away. On the other side, we know that Achan can score 50 points in a week. Like, we've seen that. And if he gives you 3 40-point weeks or whatever, like maybe Mostert goes down, maybe Tyreek slows a step, whatever. If he gives you not a reliable score, but he gives you a bunch of high scoring scores, he might be literally essential to win, especially on a total point format where, I can carry Achan getting a 0 a bunch of weeks if he does give me 2 50-point weeks or whatever. Yeah, and you generally want to be scooping up ADP fallers if you think I give the example of Cam Akers one year was an ADP faller that I just did not want to scoop because I didn't want anything to do with it. But, when it's an exciting guy like an Achan, that's different to me. I'm a bit lower on Derrick Henry. I probably needed to move him a little bit up my ranks, but I don't know. He's a guy who I think he's not that much of a different of a bet structurally. Let's get Flowers here. Then, I mean, I guess you could argue he's not that different than like a JT, but on the other end, he's not that different than like a Gus Edwards in the sense that, yes, obviously he's like way more explosive, way more fast, so he could have long touchdown runs. But what you're really hoping with him is that he gets a bunch of goal line touchdowns, right? And that's just not my favorite profile for an older player. I do like the team, right? But also him playing beside Lamar, right? Like Lamar's going to get some of those. Do you like Connors at current underdog ADP? Well, I have my underdog ranks, so you can kind of see how I'm viewing those, which I will have updated either on Sunday or Monday. But in general, if he's falling, no. I definitely think Trey Benson's going to see the field a lot. I mean, Drafters has him at 85.7 and Trey Benson at 106. That's a clear, probably Benson over Connors to me, but I expect both to see the field quite a bit. He's not a guy, there are certain guys who I would never want to be 2 times the field exposure on. And there's other players who I would always want to at least be 8% on. So an example I'll give is probably Nick Chubb, where and Stepfather's here saying just grab Connors at 100. Once you do enough drafts, you can kind of get a vibe for a guy who regularly is available past ADP. And so you can just throw their ADP out the window currently. But Nick Chubb is not a guy who I want to make my stake on and be like, he's going to be healthy. He's also not a guy at his current price where he's like in the hundreds or whatever, where I want to have 0% on, because if he's healthy, he's performing like a stud. So he's a guy who I'd probably at least want to be um, around 8% on, which is like average, by the way. How do you feel about Madison? I think he's worth a stab, but I don't think he's that. Like, I full faded Madison last year because I don't think he's that talented anymore. Which pissed off a lot of like people. I'm not going to take Rice where he's just going to continue to fall, in my opinion. Let's check out who is out there. So tight end all went. Like Pacheco, White, and Cook, I like them all pretty similar, but we're gonna go with Cook, who like maybe Ray Davis sees the field. I quite like Ray Davis's late round pick, but we have to keep in mind that maybe he doesn't. And James Cook is still this extremely explosive guy who catches passes too. Smash the like button. Absolutely, man. Appreciate it. WR Kellogg. I like your profile picture. Very blessed. I don't know how you want me to comment on this, man. I don't know like everything about your draft strategy for me to comment on that. But in general, I think it's okay. Like, it's crazy to assume you're going to win every year at something like best ball. And it's like I'm a stark advocate of someone who's like, you're not going to 8% everyone in the player pool, aka just try to like perfectly mitigate risk and give yourself a shot at winning the tournament. You're just not. I like to take stands in the player pool on players who I think are misvalued. Bijan versus Brees. I'm definitely Bijan. I do think I think it could be argued that in their smash of smash seasons, maybe Brees would do better if like it's Aaron Rodgers, like, you know, Aaron Rodgers is like scorched earth. The Jets are really good. They're dumping it off to Brees. On the other hand, I don't know how you could say it's a positive. They drafted 2 running backs in the draft. Bijan was viewed as a far better prospect. He's competing with only Tyler Algier, who not the stiffest in the world. So I'm Bijan over Brees, but I think it's close. What's up, drafters? Shout out, drafters. I think there's a lot of quarterback value late in drafts this year. Yeah, I agree. I think in general, I'd be wanting to be hitting that mid-range QB, but I'll have strategy articles, particularly on drafters. I don't want like this range of QB, to be clear. But yeah, let's get back to this. Yeah, these wideouts are just like not the most exciting. It is a bummer I got none of the tight ends. I think I'm gonna, like a bit of a structural no-no, you could argue, but I'm gonna take Ken Walker. And the reason is just because, like, okay, I got 3 wideouts I feel good about: Jefferson, Olave, Flowers. And then I got 3 running backs who I think have like sketchy consistency week to week, but each have huge ceilings individually in a weekly perspective, where if I can just get, each of them to get me 3 30-point plus weeks, like, and then maybe I find some more consistent guys later and obviously going more volume at wideout. I just like that, I think, over like, look, Calvin Ridley I like, but it requires Will Levis to make a significant step. Would you say Chubb is one of the stiffest in the world? I see what you're doing there, FF Doom. And yes. How are we doing? We're doing great, Mark. Who's the most misvalued player in the whole draft right now? Well, I think Troy Franklin is terribly overpriced, is a guy who comes to mind. he has a guy who goes at the top of the 4th round attached to who could be the worst offense in the NFL, has no business being a 12th round pick. Even if he landed, even though he landed with his college quarterback. So I will have 0 Troy Franklin at his price right now. I understand nerds liked him. Um, I typically look, I'm not a huge college guy yet. I do plan to add that next offseason, trying to, come up with some formulas to help fit what's worked in the past, but based on like combine traits. But I'm generally like you can just side with the NFL, what the real NFL drafted, and be good enough. What round do you think is good for Chark? Yeah, I think 18th, right? Like no need to steam him up the board. Where do you think Bowers ADP settles on underdog? I personally want to be betting on a potential generational tight end prospect in Brock Bowers, right? Like I do not think he belongs in the hundreds. I think he does belong in the more, elitish group. Like I would probably take like Ferguson and Joku I like, but as far as guys who I think could be special, Bowers belongs closer to that Kittle range. This, we're gonna, I think, pass for now. Hmm, maybe we're not. I guess we'll take Keon Coleman here. Keon Coleman, of course, no guarantee to be the wideout one. Would have quite liked to get a Brian Thomas Jr. there. I do like Watson. I do like JSN as a bet too. But as far as like a guy who could give me an outsized outcome, I think that has to be a guy like Coleman. Chalk Ken Walker was so funny last year in DFS against the Cardinals that week. You're taking 0% Puka. I would highly recommend you do not do that. I like Puka. I could have taken one of the running backs and hoped to get Coleman here. Like I do like Ramondre. I do like Zamir White, but I mean I have 3 wideouts. And if these guys go wideout hungry, I don't want that. Brian Thomas Jr., the second coming of Jettas would be nuts. I don't know. Like, is there anything in his profile that suggests he's like a Justin Jefferson? I view him more as like you know, like a real like a good Gabe Davis, a Gabe Davis that could like run all the routes. Honest outlook on Devontae Adams this year. Drake London has been going before him, and I think it's wild. Yeah, I was pretty out on him last year. Um, but I do have him like around that right where he went, like around that 15. I have him right. I think it's fine if you take him ahead of London. They're in a similar tier to me. Like I wouldn't be like, oh, he goes after one player I don't like, therefore it's crazy. I think he's priced appropriately, right? Like, ideally he's traded or um, Aiden O'Connell is good. He's a YouTube member. Shout out Bindles. Okay. Now I do like Watson as like a spike week guy. Don't need the week to week consistency, but I do want. I guess I'm just gonna gamble that the market's not into Bowers and hope these guys aren't watching my stream, and I will take Watson. I'll simply give the guy who has shown he's been good in the past and is attached to a quarterback we're excited in a shot, right? In Watson. If he plays 3 games and turns in 3 20-point performances, I think I'm happy with that. Bowers won 88 in the room you're in. I mean, that's his ADP. His ADP is 89.5. Which players are you looking to have more exposures on drafters than underdog due to BPR? I'll have my rankings will kind of outline that, and I plan to have like a separate thing, just being like, I like these guys more on PPR, these guys more on half point. But again, I give the example of Cooper Kupp the year he broke out, where I was like, I want him more on PPR sites. Not so good when the player just smashes overall. But I think Kincaid is better on PPR sites, where you hope his like ADOT, still in that like 10-ish range, 8 to 10 range, and he's just like a volume move the chain guy. I think Ingram is better on a PPR site. Maybe Deontay is a little bit better on a PPR site, but like, I don't think it's a guarantee. Like Deontay just ices Adam Thielen. Like I don't think Adam Thielen should be left for dead after showing that he was good last year. I have him ranked much higher. Actually, not much higher. I have him ranked around here. He's just way cheaper on underdog. Which, like you have to care about the later weeks on underdog. Do you think Kincaid takes a big leap in year 2? I think all the opportunity in the world is there. I mean, the man is like golfing with Josh Allen. Josh Allen seems to generally like him. There's no guarantee Coleman, Curtis Samuel, Shakir, etc. do get a bunch of targets. So yeah, I think that the chance is there. Could he not and just be like a whatever guy, like closer to like a Ferguson Njoku? Absolutely. But he could be the one, right? There's no universe to me where Trey McBride is the one over like Marvin Harrison Jr. Okay. So we didn't get Bowers. Probably just going to volume that. I do like several of these running backs. I'm going to take Jonathan Brooks. And with that, probably stop at 5 running backs. Brooks may or may not be ready week 1. I'm not sure. But if we see Miles Sanders moved, which would require the Panthers to like eat some salary, that would be a good signal. In general, I just like getting the RB1 in a class in the 9th or 10th round. Like that's never been a thing in fantasy football in the past. My friends, hello. Hello, hello. Adonai Mitchell is probably like quite a bit worse on a PPR site. Now, I say that because I'm assuming he's going to have like a downfield role with the Richardson offense, and like Pittman is going to be the RPO number 1 read. However, if he turns in like, 4 huge spike week games, that'll be good. Carolina, though, I don't know. It's just gross. Yeah, I mean, in general, I care far less about running backs, about what team they're on. It matters, but like compared it to like wide receivers, it matters less to me. Best value QB you like this year on underdog? Probably Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow has Joe Burrow 101 is insanity. Joe and Kyler, I think those two. And Jaden Daniels. So I was considering going Lockett there and taking running back now, which I kind of like the Brooks and the guys who are available, right? Like I like Lockett, but I think I can get similar production out of this gang. Yeah, I think we'll just take another wideout because it really does dry up soon. And I guess I love Shaheed, but with me having Olave, I'm gonna take Palmer and just give me another out at getting a quarterback I like. Russell Wilson is very cheap / Bo Nix. Russell Wilson, I will have 0% on. Absolutely zero. Bo Nix, I feel, Bo Nix is a fine guy. He's going to start the whole year. He's a fine guy getting in the 18th round. I would recommend you do not draft Russell Wilson either. His upside is not that much, and he's unlikely to start the whole year, in my opinion. Justin Fields, on the other hand, if he is starting, could be smashing. So Herbert goes to the McConkey drafter. Small bummer, but nothing we can't bounce back from. Thoughts on Fields and what kind of build you'd take him in? In general, I want to be drafting Fields. Like, I'm okay risking that quote unquote zero just because of the outsized returns you'll get on him when he's playing. To me, there's only one QB that makes sense for the future of them, and that is Fields. What kind of builds is an interesting question. I think, like you can go elite and he can be your second guy. So you can go Josh Allen and Fields. You can go Hurts and Fields. You can go Mahomes and Fields, guys like that. You can also go hodgepodge approach and he can be like a great third option where it's like a Trevor, Goff, Fields, or a Rodgers, Stafford, Fields, where like you kind of just accept, I don't know what format you're talking about, but like on drafters, you're going to lose if Fields doesn't see the field. With Stafford, Rodgers, Fields, probably. If he does hit, you're giving your chances to win. Okay. Probably going to get our quarterback here. And yeah, we'll go Jaden Daniels. Love that price on him. I have Jaden Daniels ranked higher than Goff, Tua, and Herbert. I do have Herbert ranked ahead of Tua Goff, though. I mean, Daniels just offers extreme upside where he can, if he is good enough and rushing to the levels we believe, he can match fantasy productions with some of these guys, a la a Justin Fields. Particularly like Daniels on a site like Drafters. So yeah, I like my start here. I got 6 wideouts I feel either great about or pretty good about in Jefferson, Olave, Flowers, Coleman, Watson, and Palmer. I got 4 running backs I feel generally pretty great about. Achane, Cook, Walker, and Jonathan Brooks. And then Jaden Daniels with the plan, this might be a 4 tight end team. You've never heard of drafters? Yeah, definitely for the people who like a total points format versus a playoff pod. I personally like the playoff pod experience. I think the quote unquote sweat can be poor on drafters where you kind of know after like week 10 if you're in the mix. But if you are in the mix, it's a really great sweat. And again, it could literally be like plus EV on all your entries depending on how full it gets. And historically, it's overlaid. Like Kirk is a guy who ADP of 125, but regularly falls. Troy Franklin. Get out of here. I think getting my last running back here would be fine. I like Xavier Legette too. We'll go Legette this time. I like Jerome Ford actually quite a bit, and especially on a site like Drafters where if he's only the guy for 8 weeks until Chubb is there, that's fine on Drafters. But just getting, a fringe first round pick. I mean he was a first round pick. Obviously, we don't love the quarterback situation, but I like him. I refuse to believe Deshaun Watson is garbage all of a sudden. I'm going to keep drafting him. He's not a player I want to draft a lot of for many reasons. However, I do think there is the potential for him to have a good fantasy season. I would say the vibe around him is generally terrible, though, where, I don't even think he's like fully healthy yet. Like, I don't know, man. Just not for me. Thoughts on Giants/Rams tight end situations? I've ranked Davis Allen and Theo Johnson is draftable. It's possible it's Daniel Bellinger. And I think the dude I faded like every single year he's been in the league is still there for the Rams. What's his name? Oh, I cannot remember this guy's name. Who's the old Rams tight end that we used to draft? I had food poisoning in a couple of days. I'm still not over it. They signed Parkinson? Yeah, I know. I'm not worried about that. I like Davis Allen as like a stab. He's really fat and big, but he's Higbee. Thank you. Higbee. Yeah. Look, it could be any of them. They're all probably target 4 at best. Yeah, so I think we'll just take Dotson here as our last wideout to stack with Daniels. I feel good enough at running back that I can take some guys later. Definitely going 3 QB here. Probably not stacked. And really, I'm going to need Daniels to be special in the quarterback department. Gerald Everett. Gerald Everett is with the Bears. You could do worse as like a stab in Caleb Williams drafts. Daniel Bellinger is also an athletic freak. Why is Jimmy suspended? Stetson Bennett should be suspended. That dude's like in mad rehab. Yes. So, they have Davis Allen as the tight end 3, Higbee as the tight end 1. This doesn't mean anything. Ultimately, it's not a valuable tight end room probably anyways. Like one of these guys has to have some touchdowns, but if you want to just wait until you get training camp info on this tight end room, I'll do some digging too. But I'm just like from watching football last year, I'm a little intrigued in Davis Allen. He's like a really wide load, hard to tackle. Actually, Drafters has a little. It does value pocket passers a little bit more from their scoring system versus a mobile quarterback, but mobile quarterbacks are just really valuable in fantasy in general. Plenty of guys I think are fine here. I will be taking Rodgers though, who I mean, obviously there's downside with Rodgers, but I also think Rodgers could perform better than many quarterbacks in the uh Williams, Purdy, Herbert, Tua, Goff, Cousins, Daniels, Lawrence, Stafford, like that tier guys. Rodgers could by far like he could perform like a 20 points per guy, give you several 25-point games if he returns to form. And this seems to be his like last hoorah. Like I think if he really does light it up, he'll probably give us another couple years. But I like the gamble on him. Would I prefer he's stacked? Yes, and there's still options to do that, but just didn't want like these to be my 2 and 3. Giving like a Daniels Rodgers combo, you can at least see it. I don't know what this is in reference to, Dave. Prescription drug bust. Again, I had food poisoning 2 days ago, and I thought I was gonna have to like leave this stream. I was fighting some demons a couple minutes ago, but it seems it's passed. So we're here, gang. We're here. Thank you for being here, by the way. Please subscribe. We're on the road to 5K. And if you haven't seen, I launched my best ball site, beatbestball.com. $99 covers you for the year. Oh, Jimmy G. Michael Mayer is not a great pick at 169. Like he should be probably closer to the 190 range, in my opinion. Colts tight end, yeah, I'm like the two tight ends I'm interested in that go later are Greg Dulcich and Jelani Woods, who I'm just like, I understand they've disappointed a bunch, but they can't forever. I mean, why not, right? We're trying a total points format, Taysom Hill as your tight end 1. Let's see it. What's the Saints depth chart got him listed as? Got him listed as QB and tight end. I love that. I didn't even know they could do that. He's a tight end 2 and QB 3. Hell yeah. I think you have to take some stabs on him. Obviously, I like Sanat to stack with Daniels. Did drafters change Taysom's tight end / QB last year? No, there's only one website that did that, and that's I don't even have to say that. Thoughts on Warren at ADP? I assume you mean Jaylen Warren. I like the pick. I think Jaylen Warren's more talented than Najee. I think he offers higher weekly upside in his like smash weeks, whereas like a great week for Najee is he grinds out a bunch of yards, so like 60, and he falls in the end zone 2 to 3 times. A great week for Jaylen Warren is he catches a screen pass, houses it for 80 yards, he takes a run, houses it for 80 yards again, right? Like I've always called him like a poor man's Austin Eckler. He's like that. You could argue he's like a poor man's Devon Achane. And you got to love that the Steelers invested in their O-line so much. Okay, so there's 3 quarterbacks I'd be fine with. I like Conklin a lot. Also gives me a stack with Rodgers. If Rodgers hits and then Conklin hits, not great last year, but that's the Zach Wilson experience. We're hoping that this is the Rodgers experience where he throws for close to 4,000 yards and 30 plus touchdowns. Most sites do not change the position of players after a draft because they understand that that would undermine confidence in the contest. Liked your breakdown of the article? Appreciate you would. Yeah, I mean, if Najee has a good season, it's because the Steelers' O line is kick ass. The Steelers' offense is pretty good, and they get in the goal line score situations a bunch. Warren doesn't really require them to be as good a team as far as scoring touchdowns goes. Wonder how much of an efficiency boost Najee Harris would get by Justin Fields being the starter. Well, maybe, but I think it's also going to be worse for him as far as getting in the end zone perspective if Fields is rushing in some of those. There's that push pull. So for me, punting off tight end, I like a Taysom Conklin duo. Taysom obviously has the most upside at tight end in theory, if the thesis comes to hit. And I think Conklin is a step above this gang. Waller should not have an ADP at all, by the way. He should not. I think he's confirmed he's retiring. I guess it's not 100%, but yeah. So Fields goes. Probably would have taken the plunge on him as my QB3. I think I will take a third QB now. And yes, Drake May got higher draft capital, and Derek Carr would have stacked with Olave, but I was always going to go McCarthy over both of them. Derek Carr, because this dude is just not shown a huge ceiling in fantasy ever. And McCarthy, obviously, with Jefferson, and maybe he has some ceiling. I think he offers a bit more of a mobility as well. So a QB room of Daniels, Rodgers, McCarthy, I'm fine going 3 QB with. And really, it will require Daniels to be special, and or Rodgers, McCarthy being pretty good. Chigo Okonkwo is a guy I'm comfortable having 0% on. I have him way docked in my rankings. I just don't think he's good. And now he's got additional target competition. If he hits, you're kind of hoping he does the whole Jonnu Smith thing where he just yaks a touchdown. Tank Bigsby. Oof. That's a brave soul there. Man, this list is rough. All right, let's take Will Shipley. Just hoping he's the RB2 behind Saquon. I think Mitchell's fine too as a gamble. It's likely going to be him or Isaac, but then there's always the possibility it's Jordan Mason or whoever. Yeah. Alex Keaton says, Tank posted a workout video, so obviously he will be awesome this year. WR Kellogg said, had 60% plus Tank Dell last year, taking 0% this year. Yeah, I mean, I understand that reaction, Kellogg, and I think it's fine on Tank Dell specifically, but it is good to check in with ourselves to realize when we are allowing our biases to make us do something. And I'll give like the year before Dawson Knox had a good year, I was drafting him. And then that year the Bills ran 4 wide receivers, so Knox like rarely produced. And then the next year he was actually a really solid pick because the Bills started running 3 wide receiver, 1 tight end. But my bias had me not selecting a lot of him. Hey, appreciate you, MH. I will be working hard to make sure that this fantasy subscription will be the best thing you ever bought. The site's new right now, right? Like I launched it. I got a couple articles, some ranks, but I'm hoping it will look way different soon. No comment. My ranks reflect my opinions on that, though. Wish I got some Tank Dell last season. Had plenty of Corey Davis. Yeah, I mean, I touched on this on my article live right now about why I'll always draft early. And I drafted Tank Dell like literally as the contest dropped because I didn't want to be drafting like Robert Woods in game. All right, we'll figure it out with the tight end. Let's draft Mitchell. Could be cut. Could be the RB2. Could be a literal league winner if CMC goes down and he's the RB1 for them. Do I love going in with only Taysom, Conklin, and then one of these guys? No. But if Mitchell is a stud, that's probably going to be worth a lot more fantasy points than me getting like a 7-point tight end versus a 5-point tight end. But yeah, Tank Dell basically would not have gotten drafted a bunch unless he had that preseason game. Kellogg says Bryce Young feels way too low, and Stepfather's asked low to the ground? Question mark. Did Dell get expensive? Well, Terrence, he went from like a near, and this is why I love CEH. The only guy in the player pool I've seen that gets this scroll bar. That's a little inside drafters for you. No matter how big I make this. Tank went from like probably a 5% draft rate in 18-round formats to a 100% draft rate and like a 16th round ADP. So he didn't get expensive, but he went from being not drafted a lot to nearly drafted every single time, which has a huge swing, right? I mean, do I go Ertz and just hope everyone's wrong about Sanat? I think that's possible. I think Theo's possible. I think Woods is possible. Davis Allen, we've talked about. I like me some Tanner Hudson. Kyle Granson is a similar bet to Woods. I guess we'll go Ertz and just hope we get like a couple weeks. He is a stack partner too. So we're ending this drafter stream with Daniels, Rogers, McCarthy, Devon Achane, James Cook, Kenneth Walker, Jonathan Brooks, Will Shipley, Elijah Mitchell. So clearly we're counting on production from the big four here and then, taking some darts here. Jefferson, Olave, Zay Flowers, Keon Coleman, Christian Watson, Josh Palmer, Xavier Legette, Jahan Dotson. So some definite high-end talent in Jefferson, Olave, Flowers. Some flyer picks, I would say, in Coleman, Watson, Palmer, Legette, where we're kind of just hoping like maybe they're the one, maybe they're the two. We'll see what they do. And then Dotson, I guess I'm just hoping for like couple weeks of some long bomb touchdowns. And then a tight end room that is thin but possible, right? Taysom, we know what we need. We need rushing touchdowns. We need catching touchdowns. Conklin, he is the guy who could be like better in a PPR thing where like just the tight end one of the Jets, catching a lot of passes from Rodgers. Hopefully the second, third, fourth target on the team, something like that. And then Ertz, hoping that Sanat kind of blocks a bit more and or Ertz at least gets part of the year, So, all right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this drafter stream. Hope you enjoy these free streams. Make sure to please subscribe. Help me out on the road to 5K. I will be back next week, taking the weekend off. And check out beatbestball.com for the best ball site in the business. Appreciate all of you. Have a great weekend.